taking place.
Andrew, stay with us. In fact, at least 5 civilians died after Russia launched a major overnight attack on Ukraine, targeting civilian infrastructure. Ukrainian President Zelensky said that Moscow fired over 50 ballistic missiles and around 500 drones across 9 regions. 4 people have been killed in a combined drone and missile strike on Lviv, a city usually spared from heavy fighting. The attack caused fires, power outages, and halted public transport. In Zaporizhia, a woman was killed and 9 injured in a night assault using drones and guided bombs. The strike damaged homes and cut power to 73,000 households. Emergency services remain active. Let's listen into some reactions that have come in after this attack.
Я не знаю, как я туда выскочила. Не знаю. Душі мені там на спині позашивали. І тут, і везде. Лають воно, все, стріляє. І я ото вийшла на вулицю. Я жила, кажу, не заходьте. А він тут лежав, а я була на вулиці. Кричала, голая, мені дівчонки обвернули. І от це ж мені там уже, мене тут все кров'ю текло, все мене.
Только встала. Я зашел в зал, а она вышла к двери. Жена, супруга находилась в туалете. И, получается, сбили этот шахет, он упал и здесь взорвался возле окна. Если бы она здесь осталась спать, если бы я не проснулся, она бы уже мертва была точно. Ну, сами прекрасно видите, что...
All right, Andrew's still with us on the broadcast. Andrew, not a single headway being made between Ukraine and Russia, despite Donald Trump, making several overtures about the criticality of this war ending.
Well, the reason why there's no progress being made at the negotiating table is because the stakes are existential for both sides. Putin feels that he cannot possibly compromise on the Donbass being part of Russia and the remnant of Ukraine being neutralized. And President Zelensky cannot possibly compromise on giving up what he considers to be essential parts of Ukraine. And he cannot accept that he will be precluded from taking Ukraine into the European Union or NATO down the road. So there is no scope for negotiating on the fundamentals. The best that can be hoped for, in my judgment, is a Korea-style armistice, which lasts not just months, not just years, but which lasts decades. Doesn't address the underlying problem, but gets the fighting stopped.
Andrew, stay with us. Russian President Vladimir Putin has commented on the possible transfer of Tomahawk missiles from the United States to Ukraine, saying that it would ruin Russia-US relations. Ukraine and other Western powers are discussing the supply of advanced weapon systems, especially Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. Russia has long opposed the transfer of long-range weapons to Ukraine, and these missiles supply would be significant as it would provide Ukraine a strategic deep strike capability. Newer versions of the missile can hit targets up to 1,600 kilometers away, and they can be launched from a wide range of platforms, increasing their operational flexibility. The missile's small cross-section makes it difficult for radar systems to detect, further enhancing its survivability against air defenses. Russia is opposing the transfer because it could be used to strike deep inside Russian territory. Let's in fact listen in to what Russian president had to say.
Там были вопросы, связанные, скажем, с обсуждением проблем с поставками новых систем оружия, в том числе дальнобойных систем высокой точности, это томагавки и так далее. Ну, я уже сказал, что это приведет к разрушению наших отношений, во всяком случае наметившихся позитивных тенденций в этих.
Andrew, Russian president saying that this could spoil the relationship between the United States and Russia. But more than that, this would also change the dynamics of the war. Right now, it's Ukraine and Russia. If this is escalated at the behest of the European powers and the Americans, then obviously Russia is going to up the ante.
Well, that's correct. I mean, both the United States and the European Union and Europe's NATO partners obviously have been supplying Ukraine with weapon systems of all sorts, almost since the war began. So there's nothing new there, but there's a qualitative difference. The Tomahawks are really cutting edge and really deep strike, even though it's a mature technology that's been around for a long time. And as the front line stabilizes, which it has, incremental Russian gains one day, incremental Ukrainian counterattacks the next, the war is really beginning to turn on striking the other side's infrastructure, civilian, military, transportation, power, etc., exports, etc. And there's a rough balance at the moment. The fear on the Russian side is that if Ukraine acquires Tomahawks, it will tip the balance in that deep strike, long-range war in Ukraine's favor, and it might allow Ukraine, if not to win outright, to have the upper hand at the negotiating table going forward.
Andrew, I cannot help but remember that exchange between Donald Trump and J.D. Vance at the White House, where Vladimir Zelensky was profoundly mortified and insulted for waging this war. It seems that we have come a long way from that interaction. Now the Americans are eager to help Zelensky. What do you make of that?
Well, I make of that President Trump wants this war to end. He wants this war to end perhaps because he aspires to have a Nobel Peace Prize, but more probably because it's in America's interest for this war to end so that the U.S. can focus on the other threats and challenges around the world in the Indo-Pacific, for example. In order for that to end, at one moment, he thinks he needs to pressure Zelensky. At another moment, he thinks he needs to pressure Putin, and that whipsaw effect, that pendulum effect, if you like, has been going on for some time now, and it's very confusing. The diplomatic signals are very confusing, but there's no doubt at the end of my mind that whether it's in his own interest or in the United States' national interest, President Trump wants this war to end and will put pressure wherever he thinks it's necessary to bring the war to an end, and quickly.
Andrew, always a pleasure having you. Thank you so much for joining us. We take a short break on that note. We'll be right back with more.